Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for recognizing one of our own. We'll go ahead and move to public comment. Do we have anyone in person in the room that would like to provide any public comment to the board? Seeing none, do we have any electronics? Okay. All right, so no public comment. We will move on to the minutes approval from July 21st, 2020.
Mayor Hale, move that we approve the minutes of July 21, 2020 as provided.
Harris Sondak, I'll second that.
We've got a motion by Mayor Hale and a second by Mayor Sondak, and we will have a roll call vote.
Bailey?
Aye.
Bowen? Bush? Dolly?
Yes.
Hale?
Aye.
Henderson?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Knoop?
Aye.
Overson?
Aye.
Perry?
Yes.
Peterson?
Mayor Peterson?
Reberg? Reberg?
Yes.
Silvestrini?
Yes.
Snellgrove? Sondak?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Westmoreland?
Okay, thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, this is in tab 2 of the binder and page 7 of your PDF document, is the consent agenda. And I'll ask Tony, do you have anything you'd like to present from this?
Yeah, Chair Perry, just a couple items quickly, just to make sure the board understands. I'm on page 7 of the consent or of the packet. There's 4 items. This is our general fund disbursements. But since the general fund is a pooled checking account, all of our revenue comes into the general fund and then we disperse it to EM or Wildland or wherever it needs to go. And so there are 4 items on the first page here that are large, starting kind of the third one down. There's $850,000 for the EM fee. The next one down, $606,000 for the CARES reimbursement. A little bit farther down, $288,000 for, again, a CARES reimbursement for EM, and then halfway or so down the page, $39,000 for a CCTA reimbursement. Those are showing up on here as disbursements of the general fund. They're not really that. Like I said, they come into the general fund. That's our home account, and then we disperse those to the EM fund. And so that's about $1.7 million that is showing up on here. Not really disbursements of the general fund, but revenue going to the EM fund, and then they'll disperse it over the next few months as they operate. Just wanted to make that clear to the board, since the amount is a little bit higher this month, or quite a bit higher this month than normal. And then also just on page 10, that's the EM disbursement. The payroll numbers, again, they're higher than they normally would be. That's the CARES, the COVID response of our EM team. That money's being reimbursed from Salt Lake County, but just wanted to again make that point to the board as a reminder of why those payroll numbers are higher than they might be if we didn't have COVID going on right now. And then Chair Perry, happy to answer any other questions of the board.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any questions from the board for Tony? And if not, we'll look for a motion.
Chair Perry, this is Councilmember Stewart. I move that we approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Jeff Silvestrini, I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Stewart and a second by Mayor Silvestrini. And if there's no discussion on the motion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Aye.
Bowen?
Aye.
Bush? Dolly?
Yes.
Hale?
Aye.
Henderson?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Reberg,
Yes.
Silvestrini,
Yes.
Snellgrove, Sondak,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Westmoreland.
Thank you. Item 5 on our agenda is the committee updates. So we'll go through each of those. Benefits and Compensation Committee. Chair Dolly, anything you'd like to address?
Yeah, we did not meet, and I don't have really anything on the calendar in the next month or two. I don't think we'll really get rolling until probably, unless something comes up that staff would like us to, or the chair would like us to address. I think we're probably going to be dormant for the next few months. In December, we'll start back up again. So nothing.
Okay, thank you. And Chief Peterson does have a comment.
Mayor Dolly, our HR staff will be updating the market analysis for presentation and a consideration for November, December. We can do that and bring that straight to the board, or would you like that to go through benefits and compensation first?
You know, if it's okay, Chief, I wouldn't mind looking at that myself and then with you maybe, and see if anything sticks out that would justify the committee coming together. I don't think there probably will be, and then it probably just go directly to the board.
Okay, very good. Then when we get that data together, we anticipate having it ready in November or in October and put it in front of the board, hopefully November. So sometime in October, we'll bring you in for a conversation.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Governance Committee, Chair Silvestrini.
So nothing to report other than we have a scheduled meeting for September 22nd to talk about policy.
Great, thank you. And then Finance Committee, Chair Stewart.
Yeah, we haven't had any meetings, but we do continue to be available to approve items as they come through via email, just based on the policy. So I think everybody's aware of that, though.
Thank you. All right, so item number 6 on the agenda is discussion on the board code of ethics policy, and that's Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on tab 3 of your binder is the board code of ethics. This is, for the most part, the board policy that I provided at the last board meeting, reformatted to go into our current policy structure. So the board asked that we implement this particular policy now, so we didn't have to wait for the broader board policy process to happen and to get this in place. It's basically the same except for number 24 on page 3. This is a section that board member Stewart requested that basically says no policy can cover anything. So, you know, you need to be mindful and of the spirit more than just the letter of the ethics code. So I tried to encapsulate that in that number 24, and hopefully I got there. So I can answer any questions or provide any, if you want to give me feedback for changes, or if it looks good, we can adopt it today.
Any discussion from the board or questions for Brian?
So really quick, just a quick question. We talked about this being captured annually through acknowledgement of the policy, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't see where that gets captured.
That's down in the policy statement. It's the very last
Oh,
thing
you know
in the
what?
policy
Sorry,
statement.
I do see that. Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, Jeff Silvestrini, I'm going to move to approve the code of ethics policy as presented.
And I'll second it. Councilmember Stewart.
Got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, then we'll have a Mayor Sondak.
Yeah, just one comment. I didn't look, it may be in here, but on item number 21, it occurs to me that we might want to say both physical and emotional or psychological safety, the concept in organizational behavior that's pretty important. It's the way you get good information is making sure that the environment has psychological safety in addition to I understand that this is a fire department, so here physical safety is obviously also important. So I would just suggest that we might want to include the words both physical and psychological safety.
So that was in section 21. What was the other one? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Paragraph 21.
Okay, I thought you mentioned 2. So
It's not a big deal if people don't like that idea.
I think it's, Mr. Chair, I think it's broad enough to include that. We certainly could add those words, but I think saying a safe environment is broad enough to include all those aspects. And my concern, my legal instinct says keep it as broad as possible. If we start narrowing the definition of it, you may be excluding some things that you would otherwise hope were there. So,
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeff. That's fine.
Okay, so you'll keep your motion as is with the language as it's written. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, and we'll move to a roll call vote.
Bailey,
Aye.
Bowen,
yes.
Bush, Dolly,
Yes.
Hale,
Aye.
Henderson,
Yes.
Hull,
Yes.
Knoop,
Aye.
Overson, Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Reberg,
Yes.
Silvestrini,
Yes.
Snellgrove, Sondak,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Westmoreland.
did we get a second on that motion?
Yeah, I was the one that seconded
I
it.
just didn't catch that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so item number 7, this is a strategic plan update, and ask Assistant Chief Pilgrim and Division Chief Case to come up.
Good morning, UFA Ports. Pleasure to be here. Both Chief Case and I would like to just present a basic rundown of our strategic planning process and where we are. Just as a quick overview, our current plan was drafted in 2017 and it's set to expire 2020, the end of this year. That plan was one of the first for this organization. It was a great milestone and a great tool and asset that we use to drive the budget, a lot of our decision making, and it helped us have a lot of the successes that we've seen over the last 3 years. This plan moving forward for the 21 to 24 cycle is also going to be accomplishing the same thing. And what I'd like to do is turn some time over to Chief Case so you can kind of share the process that we've been going through as of current and where we're headed with the plan.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, board. So just to give you a little bit of a detail on kind of the process, the intent is pretty clear. I mean, we've used this as a wonderful tool to drive budgets to help us determine where best to allocate resources, and we're continuing down that path this time. We have convened a small committee of about 10 members. This is referred to as the Strategic Planning Work Group this time. We do have a few members that were part of the last process, so we have some continuity. We're able to carry some best practices forward as we do it this time. In brief, this involves a review of the goals that we have maintained in the current iteration of our strategic plan. And if any of that stuff gets carried over as best practice, we're going to make sure we do that. So the internal process is, in essence, us reaching out to our internal customers, our UFA employees, and we're asking them to provide us inputs on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges that they view as being important to UFA for the next 3-year cycle. So when we did that, we sent this out digitally. We ended up getting back over 1,700 inputs from our employees. So hopefully that's an indication to the board how invested our employees are in this process and obviously within our organization. So we're pleased with that. That information will be combined with another analysis that we're going to conduct with stakeholders that are external to UFA. And many of you here within your communities, your councils, perhaps some of you have been reached or have been contacted by a strategic planning work group member to maybe join us in attending a community or stakeholder meeting. And during that meeting, we'll be using that opportunity to collect inputs from the community stakeholders on, again, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. So that will be combined with the internal inputs. That will then become an opportunity for us to review and collate all that data. We will conduct a gap analysis based on all these inputs, and we'll figure out where the community and where our employees are wanting us to be and where we are currently. We'll finish that gap analysis. This will end up becoming something that will produce our outcomes and our action items. And again, with due respect to the goals that we've had this last iteration, we'll carry some of that forward, and we'll devise some new goals as appropriate coming out of our gap analysis. And then we will also make that live, hopefully in maybe setting some new goals and then also some initiatives above and beyond the goals. And that becomes the document in essence. It's a valuable tool for all the sections within UFA. It's something that will live and become a tool for all the divisions within UFA to help, again, drive budgets and then help them allocate resources, set their own goals, and then track progress on their goals, in essence. So this will be adopted January of 2021, and it will become the guiding document for us for many reasons, or in many respects, for the next 3 years. Any questions?
This is Councilwoman Hall. What is the date for that meeting?
Oh, yeah, thank you. So we're offering two in-person sessions, and those hopefully this week will go out. September 8 and 9 is the first session or the first meeting. The second meeting will be September 17 and 18. And then we're going to be offering a Zoom option on September 19.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll share that any board member that wants to attend any of those can obviously do that. We encourage that. Sometimes it's good as a board member to be able to be there and more observe, as opposed to, and kind of watch what the different stakeholders are thinking about. In addition, there is a survey tool that Information Outreach sent to each of the municipalities that got a reasonable amount of response that we can attract, and that'll be integrated in as well. But this absolutely has driven our organization and has given us a focus for all divisions to go in one direction. And it's very powerful, it's productive, and really appreciate the work that staff has done. As a board, you'll be adopting the vision, mission, values, and the overarching goals and initiatives that they come up with in the end, but you'll be hearing from him throughout the rest of this year. And by adopting these on a calendar year, it helps us drive our budget on a fiscal year. So we want a final document by the end of this year so that it can make a focus of the budget process. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay. So item 8 on the agenda is a Versiterm technology update. This is Assistant Chief Burchett and Ginger, I believe. This is under tab 4 of your binder, or page 17 of the packet.
Thank you, Chair Perry and board. So really the intention of this memo is to let you all know that the switch to Versiterm, which is the new CAD system for Salt Lake County, is underway. I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Ginger and Les Olson. She and her staff have been working through this really complex change. It involves everything that we touch, really. She's been working with VEC, Salt Lake City, and Les Olson to make sure that this transition goes smoothly. With Les Olson, they've identified some solutions to many challenges that have come up of the switching of CADs. So to date, the project is on target to go live at the end of September, and there may be some additional costs with this. But Ginger and Les Olson, with their staff, have been able to really minimize the costs to the organization because of their creativity. At this time, we believe that we can cover the additional costs within our existing budget, but really we're still in the testing phase. So we don't know what we don't know yet. There's still some challenges ahead that may lead to future budget impacts, but really just happy with the work that Ginger's done with Les Olson. I don't think we would be where we are today without them. But I brought her up here as you know, if there's any technical questions or anything that you guys need clarification on.
So give me an idea about the magnitude of the additional costs or what they're for.
Well, really, what it comes down to is security. We're having to connect with Salt Lake City's server to do this. And so that includes updating firewalls mostly and making sure that all of our licenses are in compliance with the Salt Lake City servers, because those are different than what we had at VEC.
Or maybe licensing fees for devices in the field that are needed by, the end users that are out participating in calls. So we may need some additional licensing to get, phones or tablets, other devices to work, and then mainly the security to Chief Burchett's point. We may need additional firewalls, but until we march down the road and really finalize the testing, we won't know for sure. But we're very close.
I can share a little about where we were potentially at. At first blush, with Salt Lake City has a different standard for their servers than what VEC did, and it has to do with a reaction to an audit that was done on their dispatch center. But it had the potential of being a $180,000 hit to us, and then an annual $30,000 to $60,000 refresher. But through the work of Les Olson and Ginger predominantly, they found a pathway. They worked away from the third-hand stories of what our potential would be, found a way to channel that through here and into Salt Lake City, and it realistically dropped us down to probably $5,000 to $10,000 of expense. But we're giving up some access by a lot of phones, and we'll reevaluate the need for phones to have more access in the future. And the VEC Center themselves are looking at purchasing a product or using a product that might allow us to have access at a phone level that doesn't end up requiring that additional work. But I'm extremely impressed with Ginger and Les Olson in finding a solution that didn't end up costing us as much as what it had the potential of. The reason we wanted this on the agenda is as we work through this, I just don't want a small technology glitch from slowing us down in implementing our CAD solution. And if we find another option, we'll need to move it through, but pretty impressed with the work being done to find a solution that still gives us the security and the safety that we need, but keeps it moving forward.
Just really quick, time for delivery, how long until we see this? Just because in the memo, as I was reading it, said that there may be need for additional amendments. And so I want to build a path that potentially, if it was in the next 30 days, we could provide you approvals or tentative approvals through the Finance Committee.
We are still on target for the September 29th date. And so we believe we have everything that we need currently in place to meet that target. And I think our eye is really on adjustments after go live, because there may be the potential to move the server environment from Salt Lake City back to VEC long term. But we do have everything in line to date that we know of. We just are spending the next couple of weeks doing heavier testing. So we just want to be able to be prepared for that and make the necessary adjustments if we need to.
Okay.
I think at this point, we went from potentially having to schedule a budget hearing and everything to probably nothing at this point. And there's still some unknowns. So you might see an email come in your box saying, okay, we need this. But to date, I think we're able to move this forward and then review things post live date about the value of it and take the time to evaluate it effectively.
Hey, Chief, I've got a quick question. I know initially when this all started a number of years ago, there was concern about how we integrate historical records, the RMS systems. Are there any issues there, or is that all pretty seamless in terms of like historical response records and histories?
On the fire side, This doesn't change any fire department's RMS, so it stays the same. It just simply populates from the CAD. On the police side, that's where you're dealing with a change from certain agencies to a Versaterm. And I know they're working through between a VEC-sponsored move to help police agencies bring in their historical data. But for us, it doesn't make a difference in that mode. And one of the powers that we have going today with us is that Intera is housing a generous share of historical data. So even if we were to change RMS, we would still maintain that historical data of response targets and times in some of that area. But this doesn't affect fire department's records management.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on the Versaterm update? Okay, thank you, Chief Burchett. Thank you, Ginger. Appreciate it. Item number 9 on the agenda, then this is tab 5, page 19. And this is the discussion and consideration of training facility property acquisition. So we'll keep Chief Burchett up here.
You want me to take that? So this has been brought to the UFSA board regarding the potential property swap of the training facility property, the underlying property with Ivory Homes. It's a bit of a tricky knot that needs to be undone in a couple of steps. We realize that the UFA board has not really heard this issue or provided authority for the discussion as far as actually acquiring the property. The discussion has been that UFA should be the owner of the property. Salt Lake County transferred it to UFSA at no cost with a reverter. So we'll have to work through those issues of cost and the reversion to hopefully get it into the UFA legal title under those same terms and conditions. But in discussing, we realized the UFA board has never really said, yeah, we're willing to take it. We don't think it'll result in any costs. We're maintaining it right now as an entity, as a training at the training facility. We just think this is a step to put us in a position to then do those other 3 or 4 steps to get where we're hoping to go. So that's the purpose of this item today, is to the board to affirmatively provide permission for administration to pursue acquisition of this property at no cost for the purpose of then having a further discussion of the property swap. You're not approving anything having to do with the property swap or anything today. It's just that potential transfer of from UFSA to UFA. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, any questions from the board for Brian? Go ahead, Mayor.
So I don't know if there are UFA members that aren't UFSA members, but I just want to let you know that we've had some discussions about this in terms of how to approach negotiations with Ivory to make sure that there's fair market value, and that and that we're if we do a trade that we get value for that. Basically, there are some benefits to the proposed exchange, and we want to work closely with Magna because it's in Magna's jurisdiction to accommodate their goals, which actually they have there's some land use issues, I guess, that we'll navigate together with Trish and the Magna Council.
Thank you. Yeah, and so, yeah, we're not, at this point, not looking for specifics on approval of the land swap itself, the deal with Ivory, if that were to move forward. But we are looking for a motion of approval from the board that the UFA board would accept the property from UFSA. Is that correct, Brian?
That's correct. In concept. I mean, what the full details of the deal, once it gets sort of worked out, we'll come back for that. It's just UFA is willing to take the property, and if that land swap doesn't happen, it'll be UFA's property. Because that makes more sense, because it's a regional asset. Doesn't make a lot of sense for it to sit in the service area.
Thank you. Yeah, so if there isn't any other questions or discussion, we would look for a motion on that item.
I, Mayor Overson, move to approve the property acquisition as discussed.
Kathleen Bailey, I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mayor Overson and a second by Councilmember Bailey, and we will have a roll call vote.
Bailey?
Aye.
Bowen?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Hale. Hale. Henderson.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Knoop.
Aye.
Overson.
Aye.
Yes. Was that Hale? Okay, Overson. Perry.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Reberg.
Yes.
Silvestrini.
Yes.
Hold on, I have to unmute. Snellgrove.
Aye, and I was an aye on the previous votes, but I had an equipment malfunction.
Okay. Sondak.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Westmoreland.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Item 10 on the agenda, the fire chief report. We'll turn it over to Chief Peterson.
Yeah, just a few fairly simple things. I wanted to comment a little bit on my fire station visits and video questions. Each winter I schedule with each battalion and go out and meet with a couple of crews at a time and really just talk about anything that they want to talk about, right? I'm looking for what they think is going well, what they're not. It's been very productive. I just thought I'd give you just a highlight of what I'm finding from our crews. They seem to be really happy with the direction that we're taking. They're extremely appreciative of the support they feel from you as a board. They really feel like you as a board care about them, give them, are being fiscally responsible, support them in many ways, and they can articulate it through wages, through conversation, through the COVID process, all of those things. They appreciate where you're at on those issues. They've generally been very happy with our promotional process today compared to where we were 3 years ago. They feel like really good people are not only raising their hand to promote, but also getting promoted. And they like the future and the leadership that's coming in the organization from all levels that are in that space. They're showing a lot more happiness for the mechanics and the work on the apparatus. They're interested in logistics. They're really pleased. They're pleased with the work that Les Olson is doing. All of those things are really good. Some of the things on their radar, obviously, when we talk about maintaining 4-person staffing, we have to evolve into a conversation about mandatory staffing. And what's interesting is that none of them are arguing that mandatory isn't a good idea. They're simply trying to make sure that it's as fair as possible. And this means that when we have a vacancy that doesn't have any pick lists and nobody is signed up and nobody's volunteering to work that shift, we force somebody into that seat. And they're not arguing with us about the need to do that because they agree with the concept of maintaining the minimum staffing level. But they want it to be fair, which is a really good argument. They even realize that one person's fair is another person's unfair. I mean, they're even willing to make that fit into there. Other than that, you know, some of their concerns are the normal concerns of anybody working in a workplace that does the job that we do. But I think it's important that you know that that's the feeling. And hopefully as you find time to reconnect with the stations, because it's been difficult for all of you who used to visit the crews and talk, find some of the same things that you'll get from the crews that are happy to work in those communities. In addition to that, I take a monthly questions to the chief where they get a chance to directly write. And we get from 4 to 8 questions a month. They vary in all different things, but it really is a chance for whatever the talk is at the table in the kitchen. They get a chance to write a question to us. And we spend a lot of time answering those, figuring out what's appropriate. I bring in different divisions or assistants to answer the questions. It's usually within a few days gets 500 or 600 hits from the crews, and they tend to really put their questions out there and make that work. It's a healthy environment right now, I really believe, and I'm excited to get back to a space post-COVID where you can visit stations easier again and say hi. I know it's a challenge right now, but I think know that the feeling in the stations is pretty positive and good, even in this particular range. Any questions on that?
So I don't want to pick a scab off a wound, but did anybody mention the ambulance staffing? Is that Has that been accepted or still?
Well, it's not, I think that generally speaking, they've moved past it. They still talk about it at times, right? But one of the changes that's made a big difference that they've all accepted is that when it's partnered with a career staff, it gets a lot better. They see the value of it, but there's some people that'll still never like it. And I understand where they're at on it, but the evolution by you approving the 24 additional FTEs and converting really a number of seats to full-time career makes a partnership that is really working better. Those that have been working in that environment for a while and the support that medical's provided to the EMT development and the medic development are making a big difference. Response flexibility is unbelievably good when it comes to the value of having a medic on every unit and being able to make that fit. But I'd argue that there will be a few people that will never be okay with that change. But it's not as noisy as it was, and I think predominantly it's not necessarily because they've given up. I think it's because the change to a career staff partnership has made a big difference in that. Any other comments maybe from Dusty? You probably have the closest view of that.
Yeah, I would echo Chief Peterson's feeling on that, the full-time staff being changed from
You might come up to a mic and just, otherwise half the group won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, I would just echo Chief Peterson's feeling on that. The approval of those additional FTEs to upgrade those positions has been well received with the change in our response for the one-on-one model. We'll be upgrading those last 9 positions this February. We'll hire for that. And what that does is it gives that consistent partner to that paramedic on that ambulance, and that helps with working through the shift every round, and that's been well received.
Thank
you. I think that, like I shared with you, 3 years ago when I came, I still believe that this is an amazing group of firefighters that care about the community. It's not uncommon for firefighters, particularly in a department our size, to be a little bit more selfish, and it's just not that way in our stations. They really are. They really do care about the communities. It's a really nice thing, and we've been able, whatever was here in the culture that developed that, I think we've been able to continue to enhance it and make sure that it fits. They do recognize that really what we are is a bunch of small fire departments that are bidding to work in the community they want to work in, and it's really a small fire department that has the benefit of the big. So I think that belief is still there in this organization, and we're doing everything we can to preserve that. So it's positive. Hiring, share that we really have become a desirable place to work. We've really restored that in the area. We had 1,000 people express interest in being a firefighter during this process. We give the test, the written test. We had around 650 people sign up to take it. We'll take the top 70 scores plus all points. It'll be somewhere between 80 and 100 people will come in for an interview. The written tests were completed this last week. The interview completes on September 2nd. And a key part of that, it's 5 days of interviews and physical agility. And we look at the whole candidate. We're really looking for values that they hold, ability to learn, mechanical aptitude, and a reasonable fitness level. We actually don't care if they've got a fire background or a medical background. That we consider a bonus. We look for the core of the person first and their ability to learn and develop as a firefighter. And then we look for any of the experience that might come in. 50% of the people that applied didn't have a background in fire, but have been participating and learning about who we are. My belief is after they're off probation or after they've been on a few years, they may have grown into some better skill sets, or they may be a little ahead with the people. But after probation, they show who they really are anyway. So I'd rather have a good person and train them than have a person who's a really strong firefighter who's not necessarily the person you want in your living room, right? So we focus in that area. But we do an interview. We bring 6 of our people in from the department with a pretty diverse background, and let them spend all 5 days talking to these people, and they basically do 100 interviews in 5 days. But we had 43 people from the line submit to do this year, and 43 people that were available all 5 days. I think where there was probably another 40 that would have liked to that weren't available. I think that's a great sign of their interest in making sure that we hire good people, because the people we're bringing in are actually your future captains, battalion chiefs, assistant chiefs, and maybe even fire chief are coming from the pool of these people. And there's a lot of great interest to be here, which is wonderful, right? And it's a combination of a lot of things that make that happen. On September 2nd, everybody who participates comes back in the room. People from the drill ground, the staff that's in the living room, watching as the candidates wait, and we band them into the best possible candidates to move them into hiring. And backgrounds, our special enforcement, will take the bands and start visiting them at their home, talk to the people they work with, talk to their neighbors, and figure out, did what they tell us and what we saw in the interview, is it really true? And what we find there is sometimes people are really polished in the interview, but not necessarily phenomenal people. And sometimes people are not really polished in the interview, but are amazing people. That kind of swaps positions in a few spaces. And then we get the very best people to start in the academy, and then academy starts. We have a start date of February 1 for the academy. And right now we're around 20 people, 18 to 20 people that we anticipate. That's with 6 overhires that we've been doing routinely, and that cycle has worked well. But we could be as many as 25 this year. We did 33 last year, and I think it was 20 some the year before. But it depends. We were able to fill in, every retirement gets filled in here, and we encourage our people to let us know, right about now if they're thinking about retirement, because then we can replace them once a year. Good process, healthy process, way involved. Our HR staff does great work. Medical does great work. Everybody's real involved, and we're looking at continuing to get some amazing people. Any questions? Great. We'll let you know as we move through when we get closer on that. And speaking of mandatory, I've got Chief Dern to come up and just speak a little bit about the mandatory policy so that you understand some of the components of that and how it's working.
Good morning again. With this mandatory staffing policy, we have an interim policy we're working through right now, and we began using that policy in June. We have a plan to be at a final policy with our PAC committee the end of this month. As we work through this process, the intent of this is to maintain full staffing every day. So when our overtime pick lists are empty and we don't have people that have signed up for an extra shift, this is a process that guarantees that we can call back firefighters, paramedics, captains, whatever rank we need to fill that position and stay fully staffed for the day. What this does is allows us to obviously provide the service we need to the communities and maintain our mission critical staffing, and provide for the safety of our personnel by having those apparatus fully staffed. Another piece of this is that we only want to staff rank for rank. So we don't want a captain going to be in a paramedic seat for a day or driving an ambulance. That's just not fiscally responsible for us to be paying a higher rank to work into that lower seat. So this will help us manage that. This program also helps us support our UFA sanctioned programs that are maybe outside of UFA, where we have members leave to participate with, say, USAR or Wildland or some of these other programs where they bring back value, but it lets us backfill their seats and stay fully staffed while also supporting those programs. Our ops personnel are supportive of this. They they understand the need and like Chief Peterson mentioned earlier, the desire to stay fully staffed. But they want us to work towards a fair way to manage this. And not everyone agrees what fair looks like, but fair is having a way to pull people back that is consistent and that we can track easily, and it's easy to manage on the administrative side. And then as we look for the solutions, obviously we want to be fiscally responsible, not overly complicated or difficult to manage this and administrate it, but also get good support from the firefighters. And I think we're getting into that space and anticipate having a good policy here by the end of the month. Is there any questions I could answer about the mandatory staffing?
I would assume that you've got the labor group involved in.
Yes, we have the locals been involved with the discussions and helping us work through that.
I think, I know we have Kiyoshi here from Labor. Do you want to share any observations about this discussion, Kiyoshi?
No, it's been helpful. It's been a good conversation.
Great, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
The last piece on mine is just an update on behavioral health and wellness. If you remember, we authorized an additional position. We moved one from medical over, so we have a full-time specialist, Lane Hilton, who has trained and developed his ability to help us with this area. Just want to give you an overview of where we're at, and I'll turn it over to Riley.
Yeah, so one thing that's become extremely important and valuable to our department is the health and wellness of our employees. And a lot of times when we look at that, we really emphasize on the physical health of our employees. We recently implemented a fitness standard, which is a little bit above what we have now, but not too extreme. And a lot of the focus traditionally, even in the fire service, is on that physical health. But one thing that's often left behind and sometimes not considered as a priority is our mental health and wellness. And this is a big issue, not only here locally, but across the country. And it's something that we've looked hard at as an organization and tried to find the best way to kind of tackle this. It's a pretty big challenge. It's pretty common that a lot of people who do this job just struggle with different things, whether they're work-related or home-related. This job often puts you in just unique positions to experience and see and do things that most people don't get to or need to. And so it can be really challenging for not only our personnel, but their families as well. So a few things that we've done to hopefully improve that is we have created this position with Captain Hilton. He's going to be our behavior health and wellness program manager. So he has some very unique kind of credentials and experience that really make him an excellent fit for that position. One thing I want to share real quick, and then I'll turn the time over to him. Another thing that we're looking at right now is our employee assistance program. So we currently have a traditional EAP through Intermountain Health. It's done an all right job for us over the last few years, but the one thing we've learned is just the occupation, again, of firefighter, public safety is very unique. It places a unique demand on that person and, again, on their families. And we felt it'd be important and valuable to find a program that's a little more applicable to what we do. So we sent out an RFP about 2 months ago. The results have come in, and next week we'll be having 3 or 4 companies do presentations to the organization that kind of highlight what makes them or sets them apart from just your traditional EAPs. We definitely valued what our other partners have done for us, but we've found that to be a weakness as well, as far as getting the appropriate health and care and just attention to our employees and their family members. So that's something that's pretty important to us. And I think recognizing the fact that it's not just the employee who may have a challenge, but their spouses or children, everyone that they have to live with and go home to, sometimes don't understand how we function or operate. We don't even understand that sometimes. So this will be a great help to them. One thing I'd like to do is just turn the time over to Captain Hilton just for a brief introduction. And then we have a few unique things in the works as well, such as our peer support program, a debriefing AR component, which is part of that, and then just a few other things that he has in mind that's going to kind of push us forward. So, Lane.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. a couple of years ago, we were lucky enough in the state of Utah to have the peer support law passed. And various departments across the valley have started building their programs and doing what they need to do to make that happen. And we're doing that as well. We just did our first peer support training about 2 weeks ago. And we have a grant that's we're using to help out with that currently. The peer support team that we have will be really useful to our department, not just in terms of giving people an avenue to talk about their problems, but also to set up programs and help teach things like resiliency to the field. During COVID, we've seen an amazingly horrible rise in psychological issues amongst our members, and that's valley-wide. That's not just the UFA. And this is becoming a larger and larger problem. So these services are needed now more than ever before. One of the things that we're doing to help just within the UFA is currently we're doing a hybrid EAP contractor service option for our people. Not all therapists are trauma therapists, and not all trauma therapists can work with firefighters. So we have selected some throughout the valley that can work with us. They have a good reputation and rapport with people, and we're seeing a lot of success through that. Another thing we're doing is we're working closely with the University of Utah. They have just, well, right now they're right in the middle of doing a regional study on COVID stress response to first responders in general, but it's focusing mainly on firefighters. We're participating in that. And with that, they're coming up with new and better treatment options for us, including new therapy options for us. We are also working within that research team to find out more about how firefighters differ psychologically from other occupations and from the general public in order to better serve our people. Lastly, we are focusing and putting a big emphasis on internal dynamics. We're seeing where we are having problems, where we are really struggling in terms of family issues or alcohol and drug issues or things like that. And we're bringing in specialists to specifically address those issues. If you ever have the opportunity to listen to the Roll Call podcast, there are a number of behavioral and mental health and wellness podcasts on there. Our next one is going to be on couples and family issues, and it will be out on the 30th of this month. So we're really excited about that. Our main goal, my main goal is to retire and be happy and healthy, and our main goal is to provide that for as many of our people as we can. And we really appreciate your support in helping make this a possibility, and we're looking forward to continue working with you. Do you have any questions for me on the program or what we're doing right now?
One thing I'd like to share too with the peer support program is it's kind of a unique opportunity for our employees to engage with our employees. We have a team of about 18 or so individuals in our department who are all department members, from firefighter to captain to battalion chief. And these are individuals that were selected by their peers as people they saw as kind of confidants and people they could trust to go to in a time where they had a challenge or an issue. And that's been pretty successful as well. We've had a lot of our peer support members contacted by other individuals in the department. And they're a good avenue to get people connected to Lane or to other individuals. And the other thing they help with is a lot of these calls that we go on that are traumatic, that can be difficult to process. The peer support's made available to them as well. Or if we do have a difficult call, we can activate the team. Lane can head that up, or Captain Greenside's our safety officer. They can head over to the station, and we'll do it for all departments involved. So if we have a multi-agency response, even with law enforcement, we can get them all in the same room and kind of just talk through the call. And we found that the sooner we can address those kind of things, the higher chance we have of kind of heading off future challenges and problems that people may experience. So that aggressive approach as well to debriefing, and we don't force it upon them. It's definitely something that they ask us for. Has also been a great asset. So this peer support team is doing a lot of different things for our employees that I don't even know that we anticipated. So I'm looking forward to what results come from that as well. So.
just ask quick, do you feel like staff historically has been responsive to those resources and is becoming more responsive and aware of those resources?
So historically, and when I'm saying historically, going back 5 years, we haven't had the response that we do now. As people are becoming more and more aware of it, they're utilizing it more. We've never had numbers like we do right now of people actually reaching out and getting the help that they need. So we're really happy about that. The other thing that we're finding, and it's been really helpful, is our battalion chiefs are understanding this more and more. They're recognizing how specific calls and what types of calls can really affect people. And they're calling in for CISDs now like they never have. And that not just from self-reports from the field, but actually doing the research on it, tracking the individuals that go through that, we're seeing a decline in use for those people that need help after those calls because of it. And so it is working.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I have for my report, but I do want to share that with our even recent tragedy, the depth of work that had already been done to help that individual, there had been a lot of work already, and a lot of that has to do with how we've set this up with Lane in this role. He's not really in the chain of command. He's able to be talked to. He's got a private space to be able to meet and talk to people. We really don't want to know the details until it becomes an issue that we need to provide support with. And I think that's part of what the power has come, is that they know they can reach out to him, trust him, make that happen. And the more positive experiences that employees have, the better that it has to do. This is a unique job. We see a lot of things that human beings are really not designed to see, and how we process that, how we go through that. It's very blurry on problems that people face. Is it caused by the job? Is it caused by personal issues? Is it a blend of all of that? It's very difficult to make that happen, but being able to take care of our employees, help them be able to lead a successful career, allow them to be productive throughout their career working for us, and then enjoy retirement is a nice path that it's good to see people reaching out and helping with that. And I want to commend Lane and commend Riley for guiding this program, commend all the people that have stepped up to be peer support, and the work that we're doing in EAP to develop another layer above that when it requires more professional assistance. It's on a really good path. Thanks very much for the work that's been done. That concludes my part.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So we don't have any need for a closed session today. So that'll move us to looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Councilmember Stewart.
Second.
Okay. All right, and we don't need a roll. Do we need a? We don't need a roll call on that. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn, and the UFSA meeting will begin shortly. Do we need a break, Mayor Overson, or we'll take a 5-minute break and then start the service area meeting? Thank you.